There's a report in the UK papers, I think it was last week, saying that the Aurora Borealis could be seen in southern England, and it could be seen in Greece and Texas.
Is that unusual to be there?
It'd be very unusual to be able to see it from the south of England, from Scotland, which is 700 miles north. That's not quite so unusual. But to see it
we see in Canada, I mean, we get the Aurora Borealis coming across here. I don't know why. It seems to be more intense, but they really start to show it off when it gets down below the 40th parallel, right? You're down to New York City and stuff like that. They're looking at it in Chicago, you name it, into the States, the Aurora Borealis. I mean, where I live, it's quite common. You know, if you're not in a city or whatever, you can see it. If you follow any of the solar flares, right?
Yeah.
It's not unusual to see it. And we're quite a bit farther south than you are.
Yes, we're about 50 degrees south in London. 51.
Yeah, we're about 42 here.
Yeah. So if you can see it, then we can see it. That would indicate that there is quite a lot of sun activity producing it.
Sometimes there's 2 and 3 a day. And it takes weeks for the Van Allen belts to settle back down after a single event.
That's their job, is to protect Earth from that sort of radiation. And they do quite a good job. But beyond the Van Allen belt, so what, they're 600 miles up to 20,000 miles out. Beyond that, you got radiation all the way to the moon. It doesn't stop at the belts. It carries on.
We get comments on there going, well, it was only this classification of stuff, it's not an X classification. And then there's guys going, well, if it's not an X class, there's no X-rays. Well, no, you have, what are the classifications? S, M, and X. And then for each one, you have intensity level of 1 to 5. So when you get an M2 or an M3, and it's giving you beautiful Aurora Borealis effects, those classifications do not define the radiation and the fact that if you were out there in a spacecraft when an M2 hit, it's going to kill you. If you're beyond the Van Allen belts, because there is no protection, that's going to kill you. And these people are going, well, if it's not an X class, then there's no X-rays. No, and then another guy's going, well, the sun only emits soft X-rays. Oh, is that a military helmet? What do you got there?
It's a golf ball.
Yeah, it could be anything like that, but it's beautifully designed, isn't it? That curve across the bottom is just incredible.
Yeah, he's trying to swim on the lunar surface. You see this guy here, you know, he's a skeleton or a doll there. I mean, there's the eyes, nose, there's the hands coming out. You know, he's trying to swim on the lunar surface. This must be the Sea of Tranquility.
Oh, I see. I see. Could be another one of those little baby dolls again. That's a good one for anybody with pareidolia, right?
Oh,
It's the curvature that could not be there. That bottom curve is not a beautiful ball, but it's the curve underneath it that simply can't be there.
No, this is ridiculous. It is.
I mean, there's just so much stuff that they just shotcreted over, right?
Yeah, because when they were taking all these photographs here on Earth, because they couldn't do it on the moon, they didn't know what the moon looked like close up, so they just invented it and put a few little things like that in, saying, well, people will find that interesting. It's probably something that they acquired in the landfill site.
There are people talking about building a lander, and they're back to like how many feet of dust is on the lunar surface. One guy sitting there going, well, if there's 50 feet of dust, this thing's just going to be enveloped. Like, it doesn't matter what you're putting down for a rocket engine or anything else. It's just going to go down into a cloud of dust, and none of the equipment's going to work, right? It's just going to be buried. When they're talking like that, then what actually has landed on the moon? Manned or unmanned?
Chinese craft have.
Well, that's what they claim.
Yeah, Indian craft.
That's what they claim. But why is this dust configure coming up? Are they up on top of some kind of a mountain or whatever? Because there's no wind to blow it away. There's no rain to pack it down.
There's very little gravity as well.
There's very little gravity. You've got photoelectric charge that levitates it. It's going to land back on everything. But when you look at the official Apollo photographs, if you notice, all the mountains are dead smooth.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
they're beautifully rounded off. They are ground down. They have had erosion characteristic to them, like, which is unbelievable and smooth as anything. But where they're standing is a gravel pit.
Makes no sense. None of it. Yeah. None of it makes any sense, as we're beginning to find out.
Well, remember that one subscriber, what he did? He did a little bit of math and just going over so many millimeters per year. And then you add that over 50 years, add that over 500 years, 5,000, and so on and so on. And you're just over 50 years, you're going to get 1.9 inches of lunar dust levitating, coming down, levitating. Now, after it does that, you're going to have a little bit more, which would mean that those retroreflectors that were placed on the lunar surface, so they say, would not function because you would get no return. They would be buried in 2 inches of dust.
At least, yeah.
That's over 50 years.
50 years, 1.9 inches of dust.
Now multiply it into 4.5 billion years and see how many feet of dust are there. That is the problem.
So why didn't they sink in it when they landed?
Because they had a craft went down early and blew it all away.
Yeah, leaf blower, sure, yeah.
Yes. Yes, another anomaly.
Yeah. Well, you put a NASA sticker on it, they can do anything.
Of course they can. Magic NASA.
Yeah.
Not always scientifically accurate.
Yeah. But anyway, just to get a little bit off topic, I just tripped across a website. In my recommended, there was a website. All it does is it has a big hydraulic press. And I mean, the guy puts a tennis ball in it. He puts a Barbie doll in it. He puts whatever. And of course, he put the batteries in, and of course, they cut fire. That's the only thing I was interested in. His entire website, the only thing he does is he drops like kids' toys in, Legos, you name it. And he puts the hydraulic press down, and then you watch them squish. Nothing else on the website. 8.56 million subscribers. Okay? If you want to see the intelligence of the planet, because if you're going to sit there and subscribe to that and watch people squish a Barbie doll with a hydraulic press, if that's where your brain's at, your brain cells have degraded down to absolutely zero. I mean, we should have that many subscribers.
Yeah, of course.
Because we have something intelligent to say. You think people want to find something intelligent to look at. And if you want to see how screwed up this planet is, and you see websites like that that draw that many people to it. But that's all the website does. It's just a hydraulic press. He puts it on and it squishes something. That's it.
When I was interviewed on BBC Radio 2 by a very good interviewer called Steve Wright, who's now moved to another station, I said to him, look, ask me the hard question. I mean, this is a national radio show in the afternoon on Radio 2. It's not a television show, it's a radio show. I said, ask me the hard question, Steve. Okay, he said, I'll do that. First question to me, after he'd explained my position, nobody's landed on the moon, etc., etc. He said, Marcus, shouldn't you be locked up? And I said, only if I'm wrong about not landing on the moon. After that, it was plain sailing. It was dead easy because he'd asked the hard question. He got an answer, a reasonable answer. I wasn't making fun of him or anything. He'd asked the hard question. He got an answer, but he couldn't follow it up. Everything after that was softball. Oh, what about this? What about that? I said, no, this is the answer to that. So ask the hard question. It seems to disarm people because if they're given permission to ask the hard question, which I would do quite reasonably, and they think, right, we can ask the hard question, we've got him, and they ask the hard question and they haven't got him, i.e. me, everything after that is plain sailing. And when I ask hard questions, which I've done to Peter Bassett, I forget what the question was, it was a pretty routine one, and he couldn't answer it because he didn't know the answer, because he hadn't researched the answer, because he didn't know the question in advance. That never happens, or it should never happen. You should never have the questions given to you before you get to answer them, because you can't be spontaneous. If you're asked a question, you have to have a spontaneous answer. Maybe you'll make a fool of yourself. Maybe you'll come unstuck. I mean, I spent 3 hours on Coast to Coast with George Newry. And that produced some remarkable results. It produced Jack White offering his photo analysis of Apollo. This is 20, 25 years ago, which is now all up on the Owlist website. Jack White's now passed on, but his work is maintained forever. So good things can happen.
Well, speaking of asking the hard questions, when the Apollo 11 astronauts were being interviewed in that famous interview, they weren't properly debriefed. They obviously did not get questions in advance, and they had no idea whether to agree on whether they saw stars or not. I mean, they were caught with their pants down.
Yeah, they were.
Quite literally and it wasn't a hard question, because if you were there, you would know the answer.
Of course you would. Yeah.
And that's the whole point of that particular interview. There should be no disagreement on such a simple question like that. Given the fact that their guidance system was partly using a sextant and the stars to go there, it's kind of say, well, do you drive your car blind kind of thing, right? Because if you can't see the stars, their guidance system isn't fully functional at that point.
You've got to be able to see the stars if you're using a sextant to navigate by.
Well,
which are you looking at?
I don't think it was a hard question.
No, it wasn't.
They were being asked, but they should have known the answer.
Yeah. And the person who asked that question was Patrick Moore,
That's
a
right.
UK-based astronomer who has his own television show on The Sky at Night, the longest running single presenter television show in history. Yeah, he was there for about 60 years presenting it. And he was a respected astronomer. He writes books on it. He was very enthusiastic about Apollo. He interviewed Neil Armstrong on his show a few months after that, gave him a very easy time. And Neil Armstrong looked a bit embarrassed, a little uneasy about the whole thing, almost as if he hadn't been to the moon. And here were people asking him questions about what was it like on the moon? What did you feel? What did you see? And he didn't really answer the questions.
He was answering in the third person all the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And that wouldn't be like that if you experienced it yourself.
No, if you were on the moon, you'd say, I saw this, or this is how I felt. You'd answer from a personal viewpoint, not as Neil Armstrong did from a third person viewpoint. It is said that you could see. I mean, that's not a proper answer. Again, it shows Neil Armstrong probably, almost certainly wasn't on the lunar surface because he couldn't answer the questions. And they weren't even hard questions. They were softball questions.
Exactly. That's the whole point. When you're talking about hard questions, they were never given hard questions.
No, they weren't. None of them were. None of the astronauts were.
Well, Bart Sibrel might have given them a hard question.
Oh, Bart
Sibrel, that. He gave a hard question, and he got a soft knuckle sandwich back from a senior citizen. So Bart's a pretty sturdy boy. I don't think Buzz would have much of an effect on him.
No. And Bart's question to Neil Armstrong, when he finally caught up with him, would you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? That was his question. And Neil Armstrong's reply, how do I know it's not a fake Bible? And you think, hang on a minute, what a stupid answer to give.
That's really right off topic, isn't it?
It's diversion.
Didn't he offer him like $5,000 or something to give to his favorite charity or whatever?
Yes, he did.
Kind of thing in there. I mean, just even for that fact, that's a pretty good incentive to put your hand on the Bible and say, yeah, I walked on the moon.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Like, there's absolutely no reason to not be able to walk up there and say, yeah, I was on the moon. Stick my hand on the Bible. What else you want to do? Stick it on your barbecue, but I'll put it here. And if you want to send the $5,000 out, yeah, I can say that. That's another anomaly in itself.
Yeah, it is. It's an anomaly. I mean, these are highly trained, very well-known individuals because they were all being promoted in magazines and on television programs. The new frontier, the brave astronauts. They're going to go where no man has been before. We're going to walk on the lunar surface. They were national heroes. They were very well-known people. And you ask them, well, did you walk on the moon, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Aldrin, and the rest of them? I think 3 of them actually agreed. They did swear on the Bible. I think Gene Cernan was one of them that swore on the Bible. Well, Ed Mitchell kicked Bart Sibrel in the backside and told him to get out of the house, threatened to have him whacked. Michael Collins, he got very angry, very upset. You think, well, hang on. Why would somebody who'd walked on the moon not be prepared to agree to it and say, look, if you don't think I walked on the moon, you're an idiot. I walked on the moon. Where's that Bible of yours? Right, I walked on the moon.
And be able to sit down and say, I'll give you every detail you want.
Yep. I'll tell you exactly what happened, exactly what I felt like.
Yeah, the full experience.
Yep.
And that's what they should be doing when they were out doing presentations. They should sit down and give that full experience.
I told you about my experience with Walt Cunningham, Apollo 7 astronaut, who was doing a talk locally to me here in the UK many, many years ago. He was obviously a very well-known astronaut at the time. And I watched as this probably 10-year-old kid came up with his autograph book and said, please, would you sign my autograph, Mr. Cunningham, sir? And he said, I don't have time for that rubbish, go away. The kid burst into tears, obviously. This is not what you'd expect from somebody who paid money to listen to him talk. The kid's father, who was with him, was so embarrassed about it that he just left the room with his kid. I mean, that is not what you expect from somebody who is a public figure. You do not insult a 10-year-old kid. If you ask for your autograph, which is quite an honor, or it should be, but it's 10 years old or 20 years old, doesn't matter how old you are, you say, of course, I'll sign your picture, or I'll sign my picture, or I'll sign your autograph book.
And on a 10-year-old, it'd leave a lasting, very lifetime impression.
Yeah, it would. I was just behind him, quite coincidentally. I wasn't there deliberately. I just happened to see this particular event, and I thought, what an unpleasant man to do that to a kid. Do it to me, who's 2 inches taller than him and probably a bit heavier. That's fine, I can take it. But a 10-year-old kid, forget it. That's not what you expect. I was actually very shocked on behalf of the kid, and also shocked at the insult that we were watching.
And then tell them what Stray Dog came up with.
I sent him a little link on moon tourism, because the reason why we're not going to the moon at this particular time is they're afraid of the tourism will destroy the artifacts on the moon, because they're a national treasure.
Of course.
And they don't want to have these disturbed. And that's why nobody's going to the moon.
Well, right? Except for the Chinese and the Indians.
Well, I mean, manned. They don't want it to become a tourist trap.
Tourist trap? And they expect us to believe it.
I just would like to read what Stray Dog said. He said, okay. I found this question and answer on Google very interesting. Why can't we go back to the moon? The challenges beyond politics include problematic regolith and eye-popping temperature fluctuations. The political tug-of-war over NASA's mission and budget isn't the only reason people have returned to the moon. The moon is also a 4.5 billion-year-old death trap for humans and must not be trifled with or underestimated. Its surface is littered with craters and boulders that threaten safe landings. Now, very interesting. Yet all of the Apollo photos show not even one LM leg ever landing on a rock or fell into a tiny little crater. Nothing. Those Apollo astronauts really were so lucky.
Yeah, or never mind the amount of dust that they could incur, right? This particular photograph, and this is from Apollo 15, and this is Irwin. Irwin, as a matter of fact, was the very first astronaut to die. He was only 61 years old when he died.
He was supposed to be about to meet with Bill Casing.
Yeah, it's unusual. I didn't look up the circumstances of his death, but anyway, here's this one photograph, and you can see he's completely covered in nonsense here. And you come up, and then what kind of horseplay were they doing for them to get covered in this stuff? And this is his watch. There's no guts left in it at all. It's just the outer ring.
You can't really say it's a dummy watch or anything else because you can't.
Guts are completely missing out of it. You can see where the stem was. There's a stem there and a stem there on the Omega watch, right?
Well, maybe he broke it.
Yeah, but I challenged NASA to come up with a PDF file to address this very critical situation, because let's give the fact that all of your environmental stuff on that suit is on a timer. It's limited to the amount of time you can use it. And if you don't have your watch, if you don't know what time of day it is, That's a very critical piece of equipment to have a watch on you. Because if you lose communications with Houston, if your partner is no longer alive and you're out there on yourself, let's say you're out in this rover and it breaks down, you need to know how much time you've got to get back to the LEM. You need to have that watch. It's a critical piece. There's no documentation showing how this watch is broken at this current time. I'm waiting for NASA to update its files. I want to hear the story. I want an entire PDF from NASA on it. It's not in the transcript. And how this guy got in this particular situation, never mind the horseplay. This is the one that so-called had the orange juice spilled on the...
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like when you look at the entire picture there. But that's Irwin right there in that shot there. I mean, they must have just been horsing around out there on the set to get covered in dirt like this. Two guys wrestling or whatever, and to wreck his watch. There's no other explanation.
Is this what you're talking about? I just want to show you something here. This is interesting because there it is right there. There's the shell.
Yeah, they're starting to advertise it again now, getting in with the moon landing stuff. Presumably they're going to send the same watches up there.
That actually, the three stems coming out in different spots. The one he has them offset.
So this is the one he's wearing right here.
For $245,000 they're selling it for?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I wonder if they're going to get refunds on those when they find out it wasn't on the moon.
That's my question. I've been asking that for the last 2 years.
Why would they clean the lunar dust off of it? For $245,000, I'd want to have some moon dust on it, wouldn't you? And the guy comes up and he says, fine, I'll take a dozen.
Yeah, it doesn't cost much money nowadays to get moon dust. $30 a kilo. How do you know it's not moon dust? Because it's made here on Earth.
It has a label on it that says moon dust. That's why.
Yeah, it's got to have the label moon dust.
You got a moon rock that says moon rock, right?
Yeah, I've got a moon rock. Yeah. It's been around for a while. Nobody's come to claim it yet. NASA haven't visited me to get it back because no member of the public is supposed to have a piece of moon rock. It's government property. So have I stolen government property?
If you're sitting there claiming that you have a moon rock, they should come and visit you and verify whether it's a real moon rock or it's just something that you're holding up that looks like a moon rock.
Oh, it's a piece of moon rock. I'll get it.
Here we are countering BS with BS.
Yeah, piece of moon rock.
That's a beautiful piece.
Isn't it? It's a lovely piece of moon rock. Just what you'd expect it to be. Piece of breccia. It's got other bits in it.
What you should do is put it in a display case mounted on one of their little pedestals, you know, that they pin them in on, that they have on their display.
Yep.
That's how you should set that up. Put it in a glass case.
Oh, I'll put it in a
moon rock across the bottom of it and keep it there.
Obviously, it's contaminated now because I've touched it.
Yeah.
But you can take my DNA off it and see what else is there. Maybe it'll be Jim Irwin's DNA. Who knows?
If you give it a squeeze, does water squirt out of it?
No, it doesn't. No, I've tried that. I've actually put it in water so I could find out the volume of it.
The amount of water that they claim is on the moon, I mean, it almost turns into a giant sponge. Like they should advertise it with Mr. Clean or something, you know, we can clean you up. Then we don't have to worry about the moon dust anymore if there's that much water around.
Exactly. Good point. Tamp the moon dust down with water. You've got plenty of water on the moon, guys, you know. Oh, something I want to say. All the comments we get on the channel under Robert's great videos, anybody who doesn't agree with me or agree with us, you have an open invitation to appear with us on Skype to discuss it. We're not frightened. So why don't you just come along, contact Robert, contact Scott, contact me. It's very easy to do it. You have an open invitation to discuss these things on Skype. You have to show your face. You have to have your name, because that's what we do.
And do a presentation.
Exactly. Good thinking.
Don't just sit there and call us liars and everything else. Do a presentation. What you need to prepare is from launch to splashdown and show that every piece of equipment worked flawlessly throughout the entire mission. That's all you have to do to prove that that happened.
Yeah. And by the way, the comments you were just talking about, let's just have a close look at these comments that this guy was posting here before I had to kick him off. This is absolute lunacy at its best here. I want to read some of this stuff. Now, first of all, his name is Trev. That's what he goes by. Now, the first one he puts up is, I would debate the Apollo detectives for free anytime. So I told him, I says, okay, you come on here, you make a presentation. I says, we record each Monday from 8 to 10 a.m. PST. And he comes back. Then he said, I don't have Skype. And I says, well, it's very easy. Download it and then give us a call. And then I left him the webmaster at apollomoonhoax.net. And I said, when you have your presentation together and you have Skype downloaded, then you give me your link. I will add you to the show. But you have to tell me when you want to be on. Then he comes back and he says, I'm only 14 years old. And then after that, I said, well, I can't have you on here then because that violates YouTube terms of policy. Now today, he's saying that, oh, Apollo detectives, I have a friend that would debate you for half an hour. So then he comes back in a fresh fake account and says, oh, wait a minute, I'm now 18. I can debate you. So now he says, I have a friend that would like to debate you for about half an hour. I will not answer him anymore because I've had to delete 2 of his accounts now because of this. He just won't stop. And I'm sure it's one of the Bertie bunch or one of those guys have put him up to it. So, but the point is that no matter how much we offer, I've offered Simon Dan 500 pounds. I've offered Jerry Stone 1,000 pounds. I've offered other people 400 pounds to come on for anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. It's not bad money. And we're talking about British pounds here. And now we have this guy. And then we had another guy on Randy's channel pulling that same stuff last week. And then before that on Randy's channel, then it was Cleric 58, who, by the way, Stray Dog figured out was gigaparsecs. Yeah, well, they're the same guy. So here we go again. Again, like you said, Marcus, why don't these guys just come on and have a discussion? Why all this nonsense? I don't get it. And I'm not wasting my time with it.
Now, Blue Earth Thing was at least willing to show his face, discuss it with us over quite a long period of time.
This 14-year-old kid, when he was emailing back and forth, and Robert said, no, I'm sorry, you're too young, can't have you on. And he comes out there and he says, I'm an American and I demand my First Amendment rights to free speech. I commented back, I said, that's limited to the country in which you live.
Yeah, exactly.
And the name of his channel is Flat Earther Can't Stop a Bull Moose.
Yes.
So let's just repeat it, shall we? There's an open invitation to anybody who wants to appear on this channel to discuss the Apollo moon landings with us. So come on, you guys who are so knowledgeable about the subject, so critical about what we say, you can correct us. You can produce your evidence.
We want some NASA employees on here.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of NASA employees who listen to what we say, mainly the ones who have to keep the record straight. So come and discuss it with us. We can give you some good information. What's the problem? Why aren't you willing to do it? Why aren't you prepared to show your face, your name, and discuss with us what you consider to be the real Apollo information?
I'd like to hear somebody come on from NASA that had worked with Rocketdyne during that time period, or even working with the current rockets on there, and get some information on why NASA went over to using the 180 rocket or whatever that they were using for a good number of years, and even Elon Musk was using it as well, right?
That's
and then they lost their contracts with that. But those rockets, they're only 10% of what an F1 engine was claimed to have developed for thrust. And even the best technology today is only 1/3 of an F1 engine. And of course, that is now a claim number as well. We need the information to see if it really works. You know,